Hi kids, it's Brody with Brody's Garage. This is episode 39. Today is June 22nd. I don't have a lot of big things to talk about, but I do want to keep this little journal happening on a regular basis, and so I'll tell you what has happened. Just a few small things, but you know, they were hard. Well, slowly but surely I am inching towards starting up the Nova. Leaving off from the last episode, I stuck the air filters in the front there. I ordered some 4-inch silicone hose to make a coupling between the filter and the turbo itself. As you can see, we don't have like perfect alignment there, but you know, that's why it's going to be silicone. So that'll connect the turbo to the filter. What else? I got a power steering fitting coming. It's a banjo fitting like the one that you see there, only it's a -6AN. And so what you see there is the return line that's connected to the reservoir and goes down to the power steering pump. You see that black 90-degree elbow down there? That's the return side. From the pump, we have a pressure side hose that's already done, and that connects down to the, if you can see down in there, the power steering rack, one of those two lines. The second metal line that comes from the rack goes back up to the reservoir, and that's why I'm waiting on the 90-degree banjo fitting that goes right there. And then the power steering side of things is done-ish. I took a shot at doing some spool welding with my little aluminum, well, my multi-process welder there. This is the first attempt I've done it using the spool gun to weld aluminum, and it didn't do good at all. Even though I ground it all down, I mean, this was a nasty mess that I ground down to make it look pretty. But if you can see closely there on the top there, I got a little pinhole. I did a pressure, or rather a vacuum test on the cooling system, and I could not get it to hold vacuum, and I listened carefully right down there and put my finger on there, and sure enough, I got a little pinhole leak. So I'm waiting on a buddy to come by who's an expert welder fabricator and see if he can weld that up better for me. But that is the steam vent line that goes to that block right there. Okay, so everything is connected as far as hoses go with the cooling system. I've got my upper and lower radiator hoses connected. There's that one, and there's my lower hose. While we're down here, you'll also notice this little ground strap. What is that thing? Well, it took me a while to figure this thing out, but right there, that brass fitting that goes into the radiator is actually an electrode. I don't know if it's like a zinc, I forget the material, but the intent behind it is to prevent your cooling system from building up, I don't know, too much alkalinity or something like that, and corroding. So the makers of the radiator, Entropy, put that in there, and I almost discarded it. I pulled it out, I'm like, what the heck is this block of metal in here? It's just plugging up the hole. So I'm glad I kept it, because that's the idea, is you connect a ground strap to the chassis metal, and it prevents it from corroding, I guess. So that's what's going on with that. As far as the heater and AC lines, I just have them plugged off right now and bypassed. So later on, once we get the thing running, I'm not worried about heating and air conditioning right now. While we're down here, you'll notice I made a little metal bracket, which is not completely finished off. It's just I couldn't get in there to finish drilling the second hole and mounting it, but there'll be a couple rubber grommets behind the bracket to the core support. And these are my dual MAC valves for boost control. The idea behind this, as I mentioned previously, was I was teeing together the two wastegates from side to side, and they will average themselves out and meet up here at the boost control solenoids. I also have a dome pressure sensor to install, and then the wastegate management stuff is, you know, underway. I still have to complete TIG welding my downpipes here, and then finish my wastegate dump pipes right there, which will merge into the downpipe. And that side still has not been redone since its first effort. So that's what's going on with the exhaust. Probably the most progress I've made lately is on the electrical side of things. Down here we have the alternator output wire, which is our 150 amp alternator. And what I decided to do was go back and do this right. If you recall, initially I had just run this right over to the starter solenoid where the battery post is, and then that feeds the battery in the back. But there is a 150 amp, what they call a MIDI, M-I-D-I fuse, which is supposed to go in line between those two items. And it also serves as sort of a junction block for some other things. So what I did is I took that existing wire that I had routed and I managed to repurpose it under the dash. There's my fuse box. And then if you look over here, up there is the MIDI fuse. So the alternator output is coming into that. And then from there, it continues over to provide power to my fuse box. And then on the other side of that thing, it continues down to the starter solenoid. So I just made those wires and terminate them and got them routed through that grommet there. So I'm making some progress with the main power supply for the electrical stuff. And I still have cooling fan. Well, just look at this stuff here. I've got cooling fan relays and fuses to install. I've got to finish connecting my ECU over there for the Holley terminator system. There's also an intermediate box here which supplies data information to my Dakota digital gauges. So still have a lot to do with the electrical system here, but it's getting there. You'll also notice I put the front fenders back on and I threw the grill and bumper in place just to kind of mock things up. Everything's just sort of hand tight right now. These inner fender braces right there, those metal braces that go up to the firewall, on this side anyway, I had to take those bolts out, those two where you see the ground down metal there, and I had to slot the hole pretty considerably, a little bit more than 1/4 of an inch, to get the entire assembly to slide this way, because when I first bolted it on, this metal plate was over that way about 1/4 of an inch. And when you put the fender up against it, it pushed the fender away from the door, well, considerably. So after I ground that and slotted it out, everything came back over this way and the fender came in. It's not 100% perfect, but it's close. So that's what's going on with those. I still don't know whether I'm gonna finish this off with some sort of an inner fender panel or not. But anyway, structurally it's coming along and tying together, and I feel like I'm getting closer. As you can see, I cut out the grills for the cowl and I need to fabricate some pieces of metal and tack those in. And I just got to come up with a method to, put the curve in the metal so I can shape that properly. One last thing with the cooling system, I do need to finish off an overflow tank here. You'll see I've got the little T elbow there. And I was just going to use the push to connect tubing, the same tubing that I'm using for my boost control. That will probably have to come over here, and I will put the coolant overflow tank probably right down there somewhere, because I'm plumb out of room on this side. I've got my power steering reservoir there, and I don't know that I really want to add another thing over here. So that's probably where it'll go, and I'll run the line across. Well, that's a wrap for today. It is time to go in and have dinner. But before we part, I just thought I would point out that we are getting a little bit of rain here in the desert. It's beautiful, and man, if it did this once a week, I'd be thrilled. Let's take a look here. Ah, look at that. So anyway, that's it for now. Please keep me in your thoughts and prayers. And with any luck, I don't know. I'm just going to stop calling it now. I'm going to try to not predict how long it's going to take me, because I'm always off. So in the meantime, you guys take care of yourselves and stick around for the next episode, and we'll see what else I can get done in the Nova. Take care.